Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the wait. We had a bit of a technical difficulty there. My name is Barbara, and I am the social media manager here at AMP Sound Branding. I wanted to invite and thank everyone for joining this live conversation around music and licensing, shifting the paradigm for expanded audio usage. And so what does this all mean? We're going to dive deep into Meta's latest news on their, guidelines and logistics behind being a video content creator in today's digital creator economy and being able to utilize pop music that traditionally has always been licensed music and causing all these difficulties for content creators to use music. But now there is the capability through Meta's music revenue sharing program to allow content creators to be able to use this licensed music library. And so without further ado, I have my two lovely guests here on this live conversation who will take the mic.
Thank you, Barbara. So, Beto, welcome. Nice to see you again. My name is Michele Arnese. I'm the founder and global CEO at AMP, Sonic Branding Company. And I give the mic to you, Beto. You are on mute.
Sorry about that. I'm Beto. I'm the co-founder of SoStereo. We unlock marketing power music. We connect brands with independent artists. So very happy to be here, Michele. Thank you so much for the invite.
Of course. And to be honest, I mean, the announcement that we just heard from Barbara, it's a trend that we already observed. So this live, it's just an excuse to talk about this topic with you, because I think it's something that is changing the industry. We see that something is heading into the direction that changes the use of music beyond what we know from the last years, right? So I think this is just an excuse. So let's use this excuse very well to put this topic on the table.
And yeah. I'm excited to get into it with the both of you. So let's dive into this conversation. So now with Meta, as I previously just mentioned, and also now other social platforms like YouTube as well, they've decided to make this decision to launch this music revenue sharing program. So as I've said, content creators will be allowed to license music in their videos, and thus opening this can of worms, so to speak, for both creators and musicians. So how do you think, Beto, this much anticipated decision will impact creative agencies?
Well, I think, so first off, I think this was the news. We first heard about this a month ago, correct?
Yes.
And I still believe that there's still not a lot of information yet to know exactly how this is going to, affect everyone involved. But definitely have some early thoughts here and some questions as well. Right. So basically you have the last 2 years, we've seen TikTok grow exponentially, and it's a platform where people just seek virality and massive awareness, and you can get just insane amounts of attention and viewership there. And so obviously, I think this news that we saw is a reaction from Meta and from Google to try to get some of that attention, to try to get some of that Gen Z audience that's just living on TikTok every day. But I still have some questions, right? Like, obviously they're saying there that creators will now have access to music and that they can, earn revenue from it. But, what is a creator? What does that mean? Is a small business a creator, right? Or is a creator just, an influencer or someone that has kind of like their own personal brand? Like what does a creator mean, right? Because I think that is very important to define, because I can guarantee you that Apple, right, will still need to license the music, will still need a sync license, right? So or all the Fortune 500 companies out there and very big brands out there, they still need to go through all the necessary rights holders and necessary processes to get sync licensing, right? So that was the first question, right? What is a creator how does Meta define a creator, right? And once Meta does that, then the answers are much clearer, right? So that would be my question. I don't know what you think about that, Michele.
Yes, this is a good point because, and you know, we work with global brands. So is a creator a brand, for example, or someone who is, for example, acting like for a brand? Because brand work with influencers. So to which extent the chain goes, you know, in terms of usage. And I read some information about the details. So the Facebook video should be 60 seconds long or longer, and uploaded to a Facebook page. This is like one condition. The other is that the featured song must be covered in the licensed music library, which contains all eligible songs. So how a song is eligible? So to your point, people need to clear the right chain behind the artist IP, right? So before doing that. So I don't know how really practicable will be the process on a short term. Maybe you have some pre-synced material that you can just put as eligible content, and this is what a lot of major companies also do. But for small independent, it will be, you know, a process that you have to start first.
Yeah, and also, I mean, there's just so many questions. Like, you know, if you're an artist, like that press release, they mentioned artists like Tovlo, like Post Malone, very big artists, right? There has to be a way for all the labels, all the publishers, all the writers to track all of that. And I think that the details are still unclear. It says 20% of the revenues are going to go to the creator, but how is the 80%? How is the rest of that 80% going to be distributed, right? I think that's still unclear. There's a lot of questions to know how everything is going to unfold and how it affects all parties involved. But like, I think in terms of how this will affect creative agencies and major brands, I still think that there's not a lot of information yet. But right now, as of right now, I don't think it affects that much. Obviously, you're going to see that there's going to be just way more consumption of mainstream music on creator content, pretty much. And so that does affect other people in the industry. There's a lot of micro licensing, right? That you see. There's a lot of influencers, creators, small businesses, they go and they leverage, stock libraries, royalty-free music, just because they cannot afford the bigger, record label content, so they go royalty free, right, in stock. So the fact that now Meta and Google are allowing this use, so you'll see more of that, right? And so that does affect some of the royalty free and stock library companies out there, right? And so there's going to be just more consumption of mainstream music, and so that's definitely going to affect their that piece of the puzzle, right? So it's very interesting for sure.
And I think you touched upon these. My next question that I do want to directly ask to the both of you: who is the master of usage in this? Also, does the artist directly monitor tracking, or in other words, promoting usage?
Yeah, I think we make a difference between small artists, they promote themselves. This will be probably a little bit difficult to do that. I think the role of publisher and for a label should be extended, because this type of monitoring and tracking maybe needs to be done in this case. So I think it will be interesting to understand which tools Meta will give to the publishers and labels in order to track this usage.
Yeah, I think it's all up to, honestly, I think it's all up to Meta and Google. They're the ones that are making the decision. They should be the ones that are offering the tools to all the labels, the publishers, the writers, the artists, the managers. Everyone involved should have access to know how their song is performing and how the revenue is being distributed, right? I think that's just very important. I don't know. I have not seen it yet. I know they mentioned a rights platform that they've created, but I haven't seen it yet. I do know from the announcement that if you're a creator, you choose the song, you submit your video, and then you get a couple minutes after, you get a notification saying if the video is approved or not. And then do rights holders get a notification as well? Do labels also get one? How does that work? Like, there's still a lot of questions, but it definitely I mean, this is a play on like, there's also a marketing play here, right? They want to compete with TikTok, right? So this is part one, but I'm assuming that we'll start hearing updates and case studies, right? From what I hear, it's already working in the US. A lot of creators already have access to it. So I'm curious to see what the results are. That's definitely important to see and moving forward.
Yeah, and I was even going to add on to that point of yours, Beto, is there has even been this topic of controversy around, like, when you're using a pop artist song on a video that has some sort of controversial content to it, like, that's the association to that artist as well. And so you're kind of running this very thin line, I would say. It's very multi-layered, and I would even say just not so black and white. So this question to you is to you, Beto. How do you perceive these types of music libraries? And do you think they're mainly for independent artists, or do they exist to solely benefit larger artists? Like you've mentioned Post Malone and Tub Love and so forth.
Yeah. I mean, I know that Meta and Google and even companies like Twitch, they do teams that are creating these libraries every day, and they're speaking with labels and publishers and trying to just fill these libraries with music. I would assume that a large part of that should have independent artists. Like, there's 22 million songs uploaded to Spotify every year. I mean, about 90% of them are by independent artists, I would assume. And so, like, that, I mean, there's no better feeling than being a creator and discovering a song that you like by an artist that you've never heard before. So, everyone is about, like, everyone loves discovery. So, you may hear a song that you've heard a million times before, but there should be independent artists. There should be that, oh wow, what's that song? I've never heard it before, and then you Shazam it, or that you should always chase. And so definitely, I think Meta and Google and all these platforms, they should go after independent artists. And so the more they can do that, the more I believe the content will be memorable. And it'll be unique. So sure, once in a while, it's good to use big artists, right? But also independent artists allow the content to be unique and more memorable.
Right. So, yeah. I would even say I think that's the reason why TikTok has become so popular, because a lot of, like, new, fresh talent has been able to be discovered on this platform and, like, achieving overnight success that traditionally musical artists have taken such a long time to get that stardom.
Yeah, the way I see TikTok is a platform meant for, like, on TikTok, it's hard to build a following. It's good to see content right away, and you go on TikTok and all of a sudden you have access to millions of quick videos, right? But what I like about Instagram is the fact that you can build a fan base, right? And you have that. So, like, I love that aspect about Instagram. But that's the question: is build a following? It's good to see.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, I think I froze or something. Anyways, it will be interesting to see what will happen. To see if Meta is going to continue, copying TikTok, or continue moving forward with what makes them unique, right? So that's what I was saying before I got cut out.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, Michele, I wanted to directly ask you, will stock music libraries become obsolete in the broader sense?
The question is, how we define stock music libraries. So I'm defining them maybe in a way that this is like the music that you license for very, very easy and high volume usage. So it's kind of curated and can be searched. I think why do you use stock music? Because it's accessible, it's fast, and it gives you a very quick, coverage of your storytelling kind of. But basically you don't want to do that as a creator, right? So you have to do that. So I think that if this develops well in terms of content, so what they see as eligible music in the portfolio that creators can use, I think that they will not be obsolete, but I think that there will be really a fast adoption of this, because I think people are tired. Also, creators are tired, and influencers to use all the same stock music all the time. There was a moment where stock music libraries were growing and have been introduced, and the usage exploded. And I think we are at a saturation point, because this is really always the same. And I think this is an opportunity if made well, and it's well done from Meta and Google. I think this is really an opportunity. We have to seize an opportunity to have more diverse content beyond that already heard. So I think, yes, they could be obsolete for a huge part of usage that is still done today. I don't know, Beto, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if people decide, what do you want to do? You want to use a real artist, or you want to use a piece of stock music? I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. The music sounds better. The music is done with a different purpose. I mean, I mean, nothing against stock music or royalty-free music, but it's done with a different purpose.
Yes, exactly.
We at SoStereo, we made a decision early on when we started, and we wanted, we made a strategic decision, and we wanted to solve the big problem, which was, how can independent artists, right, that don't have a lot of tools and don't have the access to connect with brands and major agencies, how can we successfully deliver music to those agencies to increase the odds of them getting their music heard and placed on major campaigns, right? And so we went after the big problem, which is that, right? Relevant advertising, relevant campaigns, right? And relevant payouts, right? So these are, we wanted to fight against the race to zero, which is something that we see. We see a lot of people giving away music for free or for pennies, pretty much. And so we fight against that, right? Our model is affordable, but not cheap, right? It's affordable compared to a major label like Sony, Universal, right? Mm-hmm. But it's not cheap. Like, you have to pay. Exactly. You have to pay the artist. It's art, right? And so that's a clear distinction, and something that we really wanted to focus on from the beginning. We've been in business for 8 years, and not taking any shortcuts, speaking with all the advertising agencies, all the creatives, the producers, everyone involved, brand marketing teams, right? And knowing how do they like to work, how do they like to receive the music, what are their pain points, and one day at a time solving that. And then we've seen that there's nothing more beautiful than telling an artist, hey, Jim Beam is going to use your song, hey, Adidas is going to use your song. And what we hear back is just amazing. We've helped artists pay their mortgages. We've helped artists, record their next single, right? Sponsor, like the money is substantial enough where they can use it and invest it in growing their careers, right? So that for me is more attractive, than the whole micro side where you are just, it's a volume play, right? Exactly. So we made that decision early on, right? And from there, that allows us to grow and branch out to other verticals. But that decision.
Ooh. I think Beto froze.
Sorry, I got cut out again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So when a decision like this comes, Meta and Google, it doesn't affect that much because at the end of the day, these are real artists, right? And the music that we work with is music that's going to be very interesting, both on the creator side and the brand side.
So that's why we expect at the end, to your question before, Barbara, a shift from a lot like a predominant stock usage to something more maybe meaningful and purposeful, shifting these possibilities.
Right. Yeah, and I think let's also be mindful of the fact that we're gathering here today because at the end of the day, like when you are at the intersection of music and also speaking to brands, in this case marketing to the consumer today, which we are all consumers, what really unites us together is the sense of community, right? And the sense of like feeling identified, like you can relate, right? And what other universal language and building that feeling.
I never heard about communities of stock music users. So.
No, but the greater idea here is the universal language of music. Now to my question, Beto, is how does your work with smaller independent artists play that role when it comes to working with brands like, you've worked with Amazon and Apple and Nike and Miller Lite, just to name a few.
Yeah, I mean, it's putting the artist first in everything we do, and focusing on them. And so, like when we work with brands all the time, we work with agencies, like those that you mentioned. We don't promise our artists any placements, right? We cannot guarantee that, but we guarantee that we pitch the music and we get the music heard. But we do that by putting the artist first, and when we do that, creatives and agencies, they see that and they respect that. And so, we let the music talk. At the end of the day, music speaks volumes. And so when a track, when someone likes a song, when it's well recorded, when it's done with the purpose of making an art, right? That there's so much that you can do with that as a brand, and brands have a big opportunity to leverage that and to create conversations with their audiences with the power of music. And so when you're Apple, when you are Nissan, when you're, these are all brands that are leveraging music at a high level. And I mean, you see MasterCard as well. Like they all put the artist first, right? That's very important. And so, we saw that early on, and we really wanted to jump on that. And we believe that with, brands can win fans by leveraging the power of music.
Great last soundbite there. So Michele, I know that the music Amp created for MasterCard together with this Miami-based urban pop duo Domino Saints became a #1 hit in some Latin American markets, and the official soundtrack also for the Copa America championship. So will this one day be an example of a track that a brand can find in the licensed music library?
Well, I mean, this is an interesting discussion, right? Because I think so. The Sonic or MasterCard is in the track. So we are talking on one side about licensing, a sync license for a track for an ad. In this case, the track itself is the ad, basically. The track itself transports part of the identity of the brand. So if you can imagine, and the way we work it with Domino Saints, I think this is something very new in the world of Sonic branding. We just didn't went for a classic, pop sponsoring project, or we took something existing and licensed it for whatever reason. We just infused the sound of MasterCard into a composition that has been used for different ways. I think this is an interesting. Can you imagine the library of Meta that can be used for whatever content, and maybe 10,000 songs have the Sonic brand of brands inside? So they transport an idea, they transport a memory, right? So they transport a connection, an intrinsic connection with these brands. And the brands doesn't need to tell anything because it's in the music. And the more you use it, the more you know it. I think it's a new way. It opens to really new ways of thinking for us about Sonic branding done in a different way. Really contributing to pop culture, because you infuse melodies and something that the brands make the brand recognizable, but you are doing in a very subtle way where you give them the tracks within the platforms for usage. I think it's an interesting thought.
Yeah, no, indeed, it surely is. And that is also something that with the flexibility of it all is just what makes, I guess, the Sonic DNA and what we do at AMP so interesting. Now, this question is for the both of you. Earlier this year, YouTube actually dedicated a podcasting page to the US market. that's expected to roll out to the rest of the world soon. And although YouTube's interface is nowhere, I would say, near its competitors at the moment, like Spotify, this decision to get involved provides, like, I think, a clear indication that podcasting is here to stay. I mean, podcasting everywhere. Every time I'm like reading up on the audio trends, that's all everybody could talk about in that world. And so with the podcast industry, it's like expected to even surpass reported like 4 billion in ad revenue by 2024, which is not that far away. And the implementation of video surely supports and encourages listeners, and now I guess what you could call them viewers, to tune in. Where can sound branding find an opportunity to make space in this crowded landscape?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's evolving more. I mean, podcasts are everywhere. We have a podcast. I mean, this, the concept of a podcast, I mean, it's evolving. And so you're seeing, I mean, it's audio and now even video. Like Spotify is now featuring video on podcasts. So like, it's evolving. And I think that the main challenge right now is for rights holders, labels, everyone involved on the music side to collaborate with Spotify, with Google, with all these, platforms. How can you safe list songs to be featured on podcasts? That's a big one, not only on podcasts, but on everything. Like, I think that there has to be better communication from the platform side, which is Meta, Google, TikTok, all these platforms, the distribution companies like TikTok, CD Baby, DistroKid, and then the rights holders, all those three parties. There needs to be an easy way to communicate for everyone to upload the music, safe listed for anyone that wants to use it. And I think just that communication, there's a lot of lack of awareness as to how to do those things in the market, right? A lot of times we get brands, hey, I want to put my music on a podcast. Can I do that? Do I need a license for that? How does it work? Like, all those things are very important, and there's a lack of awareness, right? So there needs to be a better effort from everyone involved, right? To just speak to that and get very clear, established processes how to do things. Because right now, it's very hard to do it unless you know someone at TuneCore, unless you know someone in the distribution companies, or unless you know someone at TikTok, right? And sometimes it's hard. It'll take time to get something safe listed or get something distributed at the right time. A brand needs to move fast, right? Like, a brand needs to push a podcast episode, but you need to include the song in there, so it'll take some time to distribute. Or with TikTok and Meta, like, you need to push the music, and it'll take 2 to 10 days for it to be live or something like that. So you need to understand the timelines. So I think it's important. Again, there has to be very clear messaging as to how to go about these things. And right now, very few people are aware.
Yeah, I think Beto, this is also again the question of tooling, right, and tools. So I think there isn't like an hocus pocus behind that should be solved for publishers to get the content into the podcast. I think one point will be tools, and the other point is, if we look at YouTube getting wild on podcast while nobody's looking at, right? So the trend is to video cast maybe. So it's something that, and then this is like connected again with the topic of Meta offering the possibility to license music for video. So at the end, I think that the video casting is taking everything back to the video topic. And this is also connected with the use of music that can be also done maybe in an easier way for podcasts, which are like video custom video platforms. So I think from the struggle is maybe from publisher, labels, people, artists that want to push their track in podcast. I think there is a less struggle from a brand perspective, since brands are doing but their own very often that. So I think from the branding perspective, we have in our work, we have always the ask to create some assets that can be used for podcasts, and they are sometimes self-produced and self-published by the brands. So I think the struggle is more for independent content creators and for artists, getting that material published and promoted in the platform without really any good support from tooling. But we expect the trend of videocast getting more and more in other platforms. So at the end will be a mix between video and audio. You can decide what you take, right? Depending on your situation, your context. Are you traveling? Then you turn the video off. Then you have like a classical podcast. You turn the video on. You have the video cast and with some additional content.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, all very great points, Michele. And it leads me to my question to you. Which role do you believe will brands play in the shift towards new opportunities to create in-stream ads with an expanded music offering?
Well, the question is, I think the definition of in-stream ad, we can take it from the common in-stream ad. We can go to the Metaverse, for example. We can see what happens there if you are just in the central land. You are in the Metaverse and you do an experience in the Metaverse, and you are maybe going to a virtual shop. And what happens in that virtual shop? So there is also an in-streaming, right, ad happening, but maybe it's not an ad. Or you are playing a video game and you need some more, life, and you buy a life insurance in the video game, and you have, the music from, a life insurer played in the moment where you get your extra life. And this is also in-stream ad in a way, but in a different form. I think that audio can really make the difference to expand the in-stream possibilities for brands to be heard and to be recognized in a very, very different set of new opportunities and possibilities. And we are just at the very beginning, if you consider the Metaverse. We are just at the beginning to imagine what we can do with more embedded experiences. This is an ad that is not an ad anymore, right? So you are just in the flow of doing something. And this is where the trend goes and where music and audio are going with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one thing to note is, at the end of the day, what is a sync license, right? And so
correct.
Break it down. You're putting audio to video, and in order to put audio to video, you need the approval and the consent of all rights holders. That's the sync license, right? And so, the lines are sort of blurred, but the reality is you still need a sync license, even if it is in the Metaverse or wherever. That's the reality. And so, how much music is going to be on that Facebook Meta library, right? That they have, right? And record labels like Universal, Cobalt, BMG, they have, sync licensing is a big part of what they do. And I don't think they just want to let go of that easily to Meta and to Google, right? So it's just very interesting. That's why I think that the most important thing to note here is, what is a creator? If we
back to the first question.
Yes, because that just clears everything up. I would assume that the majors are going to want, whatever brand out there wants to use one of their songs, they don't want Meta to control that transaction, right? They want to control that. So it's just, there's not a lot of information out there, in my opinion, but it's very interesting. So like Michele said, we're at the beginning. We understand the possibilities and we can get excited about where things are headed, but I think we're still at the beginning because there's just a lot to define.
Right.
Yeah. But what I do know is that consumers out there are very savvy and smart, and they know, especially with TikTok, they know when something sounds real versus just made in 2 minutes, right? I definitely know that, and you can see that in TikTok.
Yeah.
So very interesting for sure.
Yeah. Well, now just wanted to those who are still watching, we have just 2 more questions, and then anyone is welcome to ask any questions. So please be aware that you can ask and we will answer. So now my next question is to the both of you. I'm not sure if you both were aware, but this year, just recently for the Video Music Awards, artists like Eminem and Snoop Dogg performed in the Metaverse. And at the moment, the guidelines for the Metaverse seems to be rather ambiguous. How do you see the Metaverse impacting music licensing and sonic branding? But also, how can we better use it as creative leaders?
I can tell you, I mean, the Metaverse is the topic. What happened in June, for example, we created a track for the Pride Month for MasterCard. So the track has been created by an artist infusing the sound of MasterCard in the track, like we do usually. So it is an artist contribution, but with the brand sound in it. Fantastic track. Danceable, of course, for the Pride Month. MasterCard took the track and put the track into the Metaverse in the Pride Plaza. And you could go there in the Pride Plaza, meet people, and you could go to the dance floor and dance where the track was played on the dance floor. So also to your point, Beto, before, what is a sync license? So what is a virtual dance floor with a track played by a DJ in the Metaverse that it doesn't exist? So it's an interesting thing. And this was, as far as we know, the very first implementation of a sonic identity into a Metaverse. And this just happened because MasterCard has a sonic identity. And so the track is there. And I think we can expect much more of this, because the more experiences you have in the Metaverse, all these experiences will have audio, basically. It's something that is, constructed for audio, because you don't have all senses. So you have to have audio almost everywhere. I think this is, the opportunities are huge. And also the definitions are very new sometimes. Which type of license is that? I don't know. Try to define the usage. And I think we will have much more, in this direction from a lot of brands, and also a lot of brands that have a sonic identity can try to transport this sonic identity into this virtual space. Artists performing, festivals, everything.
Yeah. I was part of that dance group in the Decentraland Pride Plaza, so it was virtually fun. Vince, do you have any words?
Yeah, I mean, I think the possibilities are endless, and there's millions of valuable experiences that you can create in the Metaverse. And artists can leverage this, brands can leverage this, right? The question is on how do you distribute all of that, right? And there's so much at play here, but there's a window that we have to figure everything out. I do think that we're still early, but there's a lot of questions still. So we'll see how this unveils. But I mean, as Michele said, the opportunities are endless. There's a big part of everyone in the Gen Z community feels more comfortable in the Metaverse, in digital platforms than anywhere else. So that's why you're seeing such an emphasis on that, because that's the future and people want to focus on that. So it's going to be very interesting for sure.
And I think the aspect you mentioned before, Beto, about TikTok and the discovering moment and the power of the community intelligence, right? That rates things better because they are better actually. I think this will happen in the Metaverse as well. There will be, of course, a space where people can explore new things and then discover, like they do in TikTok, in the 2D world, right? So it will be something similar if done properly. And I think it's just opening up to new musical connections that can happen that we don't have now today
and if you look back, I mean, it's everything now is about creating an experience. And so you want to offer, if you're a brand, if you're a creator, if you're an artist, you want to offer an experience. And so that's we're going to see more of those, right? But again, like these new technologies there's a lot of questions, but those will get answered eventually. But it's definitely something to pay attention to, because it's really going to affect a lot of the people in the space, a lot of the the companies that transact on a day-to-day basis on music for video and for content, for sure.
Yeah, no, totally. I totally agree with you on that point, Beto. And now this is my last question before we dive into the Q&A. I had to ask because it is Hispanic Heritage Month, and also earlier I did mention Miller Lite. I read your thoughts on the collaboration between Colombian reggaeton singer J Balvin with Miller Lite when they did that collab, which I thought, and I found it to be so great considering the influence and impact of Latin music into mainstream American music now that Latin music is part of the US culture. How can brands incorporate cultural music beyond just this time? And also, what is the value in this?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I would say is Latin music is like the multicultural market is now general market. And the numbers prove this, that, the majority of the population here in the United States will be Latino, right? Eventually. And so brands need to understand that. And so when they include Latin music on a spot, I mean, it's gonna really get to everyone involved, right? And people are gonna feel that it's not just a minority group. Everyone here can feel that. There's a lot of U.S. Hispanic people that don't speak Spanish, but they can resonate with the music and with the culture. I believe Miller Lite with J Balvin, they did a great partnership. I think you could see it's a real partnership, but I think that brands need to understand and be open to Latin music as something that really speaks to culture now. It's not just a minority group. It's something that's very popular now, and people love Latin music. Not only reggaeton. I mean, I just think everything. They need to be open to other genres and be bold and understand that we live at a time where people appreciate when something is unique, when something is done with purpose, and not just because someone else did it. People can tell. So definitely Hispanic Heritage Month. It's a time to understand that Latin music is here to stay. That it's mainstream. That everyone loves it. So brands should leverage it.
And I think this is absolutely true, and this is what we see in the work with global brands. So global means also Hispanic a lot in terms of cultural diversity. I'm not Latin American, I'm Latin Italian, but at the end, what we saw in the collaboration with Domino Saints, right, and for MasterCard was that what I see in the Latin American music and the Hispanic music, there is a high level of engagement of community. So if you see how many people just go to YouTube, watch their artist, there is really a very, very high sense of community. And I think that the discussion with brands sometimes local versus global, the Hispanic culture is a global one and it's everywhere. And I think this is something that brands have on their roadmap when it comes to, for example, from our perspective, sonic rollout and sonic work. This is absolutely a must. Totally.
Well, thank you to the both of you for answering that question and adding your bit to this, I would say, timely month. Now, we have a question here from Chris Bergen. How do you think brands will approach both sonic branding and licensing in the metaverse? And this is the second part to his question. And are there any industries that will benefit more from this new digital touch point?
I mean, I think there's so much possibilities, and many industries can participate in the metaverse. I mean, there's the metaverse is a good place to communicate specifically with younger audiences, and whatever it is that you're trying to communicate, you can do so. So I don't think there's a limit to that, right? In terms of Sonic branding, I definitely think, Sonic branding and licensing, I definitely feel that you can leverage those just how you can leverage any experience, right? It's just another medium to communicate, right? So, I mean, it's just a matter of like doing something unique in a different medium. That's how I see it. So, Michele talks about MasterCard and how they created, a mnemonic that lives and breathes what MasterCard stands for, but they've gotten that mnemonic and they've successfully turned it into a lot of different songs, iterations in different genres with different artist partnerships, right? You could still do all of those things in the metaverse. It's just another medium to communicate whatever you're trying to communicate. And so to a younger audience, right? That's what I think for sure.
Yeah, I absolutely. And this is what also my answer would be. So there is no limitation in industries or sectors. It's just another medium. We create for your ears, wherever they are. So it's about your ears at the end. And I think the metaverse offers a lot of possibilities. We are touching on the metaverse in the next issue of Amplify, our magazine that will be out end of September, beginning of October, for an industry that is the banking and finance industry. So it touches everything. So there is, for me, no limitation. And the audio plays a major role in this medium anyway.
That's a great point that you make there, Michele. And I also want to remind everybody, if you want to check out the previous editions of Amplify, our Sonic Branding magazine, you could easily go to our website and be able to download a copy of your own. I'll have the little ticker there right there scrolling by, so you could not miss the website. For anyone who has any other questions, now is the time to ask us. If not, we will close out this compelling conversation. And we'll hang out and chat a little bit more. But to the both of you, are there any last minute thoughts that you would like to add on before we close out?
No, I mean, I just think that everyone involved needs to continue to explore and looking at ways to innovate, continue to see if there's any new updates, information. I think it's about awareness and communication, really. And I think that's where the majority of the work needs to be done. Making sure that everyone, like from an artist to a record label to a publisher, whatever the size might be, everyone needs to know how to move along, right? There has to be clear instructions as to how to track the income, the royalties, everything that's going on these new platforms. Because a lot of people they don't know. We speak to artists all the time and they're not aware of any of this. So there has to be a better job when it comes to awareness and communication. And that'll help immensely and help everyone collaborate in unison. That's the goal. I mean, there's a lot of that's the dream, right? But I think we're still a long ways. That's why we want to be there to just help, right? That's what SoStereo lives and breathes, right? We help our clients, we help our brands understand how to work with independent artists, and we help independent artists do the same with brands and be an enabler, be someone that can create bridges, right, and opportunities. That's what we believe.
Yes, I think in my case, I would add just the point of content. I think it's an opportunity to have just better content and more meaningful, purposeful musical content out there. I think if the opportunity that we are talking about today is used well, if the tools are there, if the access is working, I think it's just an opportunity to have just better music and better content out there. And I think brands and creators, and maybe, Beto, we do a follow-up when we know who are the creators in 6 months.
Yes.
Then we discuss about the creators, but when the creators get access to this content, it will be anyway a better content. So I think we are looking forward to seeing how this evolves in the next couple of months.
And Michele, always a pleasure talking with you, for sure.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for being here.
Just wanted to showcase these comments from Katie Garibaldi, just expressing thanks for the conversation and how great it was, and also from Martin Gutierrez, very engaging conversation. Thanks for this. So thank you to everyone who tuned in. We will be saving this LinkedIn Live on our company page. So if you wanted to share this with your network and just tune in again to the important highlights of this conversation, do not worry, it will be there. Thank you to the both of you. Thank you, Beto. Thank you, Michele.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, Michele.
Thank you. Talk soon. Bye.